Welcome once again, everybody, to a special Friday episode of B&B Hockey Talk, Canucks Hockey Talk. I'm Aaron Bloxel with my co-host, Mr. Matt Balzer. Matt, we've got at least 3 games to talk about, actually probably more since we missed last week. But Canucks' recent 4-game road trip, they go 1, 2, and 1. But in my opinion, they've been playing still pretty good. What have you seen? What do you like?
Yeah, I think I've liked the play of Brock Besser most of all. I think out of everybody, the guy, even though he hasn't been getting like the goals or whatever, but the guys are playing around.
A beautiful pass.
Oh, yeah, well, that goal against Colorado, that was pure that's what you want to see from Brock Besser when he shoots the puck. It's like that's when you know he's on his game. But he's been playing. He had like a few 23-minute nights over the 4-game road trip, and like that game against Philadelphia, he was like an absolute beast. Green was just playing the crap out of him in that game. But if it wasn't for Carter Hart standing on his head in that game, he should have had at least a couple of goals. And not to mention Nikolai Godoldin, who finally got back in the lineup. Hooray! He got the goal against Colorado, and it's been getting some decent ice time. Though I know last night he was under 10 minutes ice time, but other than that, it's nice to see him. And then Pettersson, of course, the nice one-time goal against Chicago last night, and he's still out there doing his deeks, which is still fun to watch. And then on the back end, you got Ben Hutton and Troy Stetcher playing like beasts out there. Hutton over 31 minutes of ice time last night against Chicago, and it's been over that 25-minute mark the past 3 games. With that unfortunate injury to Alex Edler.
Let's talk about that injury for a second. I mean, they come out after the All-Star break and dominate Colorado, quite frankly. I mean, they just, from start to finish, just absolutely dominated them. And then there's the scary accident to Alex Edler. Why he didn't let go of his stick, I don't know. But, man, he's knocked out cold pretty much as soon as he touched the ice. A nasty gash to the head. Who knows how long he's going to be out, but that really, in my opinion, is going to salt away the Canucks' playoff chances here. Because quite frankly, when you take out a guy that plays 25 minutes a night and is your clear number 1 guy, I don't think they have the depth in the back end to bring this home. And their record this year is just atrocious without Edler in it. But from my understanding, they keep saying a couple of weeks. I have a feeling this might be a long injury for Alex Edler.
Yeah, it's really tough to see like the way that he fell and the way his head hit the ice. Just a freak play too.
Yeah.
But he's really lucky that he didn't get any fractures to his orbital bone or anything. Like when I heard that it was only like a crap ton of stitches, the Canucks were pretty fortunate on that front. That he didn't fracture anything. But yeah, it's really tough because like you saw Chris Tanev's been moved over to the left-hand side the past couple games, and then that means you got to promote Eric Goodbranson back into the top 4, which we all know is not good for the way that he's.
But it's still better than having Pouliot or Biega there. Like the lack of depth right now is just really gonna show. But I like the fact that it gives a lot of ice time to Stetcher and Hutton. Because like you said, Hutton's minutes are completely way up. And those 2 guys, I mean, they look great against Washington. They both had a goal post and a crossbar. They both had a few assists on this road trip. Stetcher especially, with the nice shot in the tip by, I believe, Mott against Colorado. Then he had the nice pass to Pettersson last night on the power play. These 2 guys, I think, are going to be in the top 4 of the Canucks defense for years to come, especially with the way they're playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'd really like to see some of these young guys come up and play. Like they have Brisebois up as a 7th defenseman. I wouldn't mind seeing him get in a game just to see where he's at, because like you can go a game without Derek Pouliot on the back end. And Benning was pumping his tires pretty good before the season, even though most of us were just sort of like, he hasn't really done much sort of thing. And even if they can get Evan McEnany up as well. He's had a pretty good year down in Utica. 7 goals, 24 points in 46 games this year. I wouldn't mind seeing him get a shot, and especially with those guys being lefties too. It helped balance out.
If I'm not mistaken, McEnany may be injured right now or just coming back off of an injury. Hence the reason Brisebois is up. But let's talk about the game in Washington. Great tribute to the one Jay Beagle. Dozens and dozens of signs in the stands, and very emotional night for him. Ovi came over, gave him a big hug right after the video played on the video. Standing ovation from the crowd. The crowd chanted, "Beagle, Beagle." Guy that I absolutely loved in the playoffs and was begging the Canucks to sign him. They end up signing him. Can't believe it. That's the first time that's ever happened where I really wanted a guy and they signed him. But I think he's still underrated here. And I don't think Canuck fans appreciate him like Washington fans do. But what were your thoughts about that great tribute they gave him?
Yeah, I thought it was a little strange how how crazy Washington was for Jay Beagle, fourth line player. It was a little crazy because I don't know how many fourth line players in Vancouver would get that sort of reception.
But that's the thing is he was only a fourth line player last year in the playoff run. Usually he's up and down the lineup from anywhere from one to 4 when he was with Washington. He won an East Coast Hockey League championship. He won the Calder Trophy with Hershey Bears when he was in the farm system for Washington as a young player. And now he wins the Stanley Cup, one of the only players to do the triple win like that. But Beagle was one of those guys that did whatever they asked him to do and took so many important faceoffs for them, even in last year's playoffs.
Yeah, it's just like I get the reception or whatever. It's just like it's all right, but hey, like for me, it's like hey, it's Jay Beagle sort of thing. Like for me, I'm still not the biggest fan. Like he still only has 2 goals on the season, and one of them's an empty netter. It's like I'd still like to see him contribute a little bit more offensively. Like Adam Gaudette, basically in the same amount of games, still has more goals than Beagle. And just
to step in there, Beagle's not a guy they signed to score goals. I think one of the big comparisons that you might want to look at is the way somebody like Burrows or Jelena or somebody like that the Canucks would vote year after year after year. The Canuck fans would vote them as the unsung hero. I think that's what Jay Beagle was to the Washington Capitals. Right? He's not going to put up a lot of points, but he blocked shots. I mean, look at this year. He broke his hand blocking a shot, essentially killing a penalty, right? He's constantly blocking shots, important faceoffs, kills penalties, great in his own zone. I don't think the Canucks had any expectations about him getting a lot of points, but he does bring that veteran presence to the center ice position. Hence the reason I think your friend Brandon Sutter gets more offensive time than Beagle.
Oh, man. And I still can't believe Sutter was getting more ice time a few games than Pettersson and Horvat. That's the one thing that I find really strange is when you're playing Sutter more than Pettersson and Horvat. I think, and it'll be interesting to see if Horvat, he's been going through, this huge goal-scoring funk of late. I'd be interested to see if they would actually think of switching up sort of the defensive matchups and going with Horvat more because, when he went on that big, huge run, he was playing 22, 23 minutes a night, and he was actually dominating most games like that. And I think you should be riding those 2 centers over Sutter. Sutter, we talk about, well, if we look at him, if you just want to contract wise, he's making over $1 million and a bit more than Beagle, but he still only has 6 points on the season and 4 goals. Gaudette still has more points than him in just about 7 more games this year.
Horvat should have. I mean, he had a great chance to score against Washington. Obviously, get a penalty shot, and Holtby made a great save on him. He's had a lot of chances still. The goals just aren't going in. I'm going to defend Sutter again though too, because I think, a guy like Sutter, I watched last night against Chicago, he's out there every single time against the Brinkat, Kane, and Taves line. And, Chicago scores some power play goals. But that line was really neutralized, and the Roussel, Sutter, Virtanen line, it was switched up a little bit, I think, towards the third. But Virtanen with his speed and Sutter with his positioning, they just really took away the ice and really limited those scoring chances from those guys. And I know that's not your guy, but you do have to have some of those guys in your lineup to shut down the other team as well. I just think the Canucks sometimes are too worried about shutting down the other team rather than forcing the issue and make the other team shut them down.
Yeah, I actually really like that point, because if you're just playing to defend and try to get the game to overtime, or just playing not to lose sort of thing, that's where you're really going to get in trouble. So it's like you want to see Pettersson gain more, like around like 20 minutes a night sort of thing, and Sutter sort of gain around like that 14, 15 minutes a night, because if you go with Jay Beagle, that sort of balances out the ice time on that bottom six. But yeah, I still think Brandon Sutter, I think it'll be interesting to see if they could trade him going into this trade deadline.
Yeah.
Like he got the Minnesota Wild, who, like, Mikko Koivu just went down with a season-ending injury there. That would be interesting to see if he'd be a fit there, or if you look at the Anaheim Ducks, like they've been rumored to be interested in Sutter as well with all their recent struggles of late. If he'd be a fit there, because basically the way I'm pumping is I want to see Adam Gaudette back up with the Canucks, because if he got the way like Horvat plays the two-way, and then if you want to keep Beagle as you sort of like your shutdown guy, I just like to see Gaudette get some ice time. Like, he's a point-a-game player in the American League this year, 11 points, 11 games. And he's shown that he can play in the NHL this year. It's just like I think they can get rid of some of these veterans and still get better by bringing in some of their younger players as they push for a playoff spot. But yeah, it's like if you look at that, and then Zach McEwen, as we usually bring up here, like we had Tim Schaller. He came into the game against Philadelphia, and he played just over 5 minutes and sat basically like a period and a half to finish the game. And then Louis Eriksson, it's just like Eriksson, like as a two-way player, he's all right. But like the Washington game, he played under 10 minutes. And he didn't play the final 12 minutes and 46 seconds of that third period, and only had 2 shifts in the third period as well, which I'm actually sort of happy about, because we've been we've been wanting Travis Green to play the guys that have been going and start to sort of limit the ice time to these guys that aren't producing.
They made Michael Gramlin a healthy scratch for you.
Yeah, which was nice. It's just like, though, out of all the guys, it's just like if you're scratching Granlund over Schaller, I'm just like that's still a little mind-boggling. But at least we're seeing some of these guys start to get limited ice time. And like Josh Leivo actually had a really good game against Chicago, 3 points, 1 goal. That was nice. But I think the biggest thing is just like the lack of depth. When injuries start to accumulate, like Sven Baertschi, like having him out of the top 6, it's just like, if you're replacing Baertschi and then you're putting Tim Schaller in on a line with Bo Horvat to start the game there, it's just like, yikes. It's just like you need to find a little bit more support there.
Well, for me, their strength is definitely down the middle. I have no problems with the 4 centers that they have. I wonder, I mean, I'm sure the thoughts had to come across their mind at some point to have a look at Gaudette playing the left side with a guy on the top line. Like, I'd love to see Gaudette with Pettersson and Besser, or Gaudette with Horvat and Leivo, or something like that, where he could be a potential top 6 guy, because he's not going to be a top 6 guy as a centerman with this team anytime soon, because both Horvat and Pettersson are very young. And Gaudette's proven in university that he can score. He's proving in the AHL he can score. I'd be curious to see what he looks like as a left winger playing the off wing, or even as a right winger if they want to experiment with him on the wing and just see what they have there. I do see Sutter potentially being moved. It is nice, in my opinion, though, to have Sutter, Beagle, and Horvat all who could kill penalties. I think that's definitely a position of strength right now. Against Chicago, I'm not a big fan of Kelly Sutherland, the ref. I mentioned to you this before we went on air. Local BC boy always seems to call cheesy penalties against the Canucks when he's reffing, and I don't know if it's psychologically just so that it looks like he's not favoring them. But man, did he ever call an atrocious penalty on Sutter? They're shorthanded. Sutter gets absolutely picked and interfered with to allow Taves to come in, and out of frustration, Sutter slashed the ankles of I think it was trying to think of the defenseman Gustafsson. Is it Gustafsson? Yeah.
Yeah. Eric Gustafsson.
It was Eric Gustafsson. He slashed his ankles because of the interference, and then he ends up getting a penalty, which puts him down 2 men short. Chicago scores 2 power play goals. And then literally in the third period, Louis Eriksson did not even the same thing. He unknowingly set a pick, and the Chicago player fell down. Eriksson, wasn't even looking at the Chicago player. He was just trying to stay on side. And he gets called for interference when they get they got a prime scoring chance out of that potential interference. And is it a pick? Yeah, it's questionable because I don't think Eriksson meant to do it, whereas Sutter gets absolutely steamrolled, slashes the guy in retaliation, and they end up going down 2 men. That was frustrating to me in the Chicago game, seeing that happen. Especially putting them down two men against a great Chicago power play. But where I'm going with that is I really like the strength down the middle. I'd like to see them experiment with Gaudette on the wing, potentially with this team, because like you said, Barchi's now down. It takes away a top 6 guy. We know Russell's not a top 6 guy. He's definitely a great third-line player. Love the agitation that guy brings to the team. And Goldobin is Goldobin. I mean, the guy, he reminds me a little bit of a young Pavel Bure, where he's got all the talent in the world, but only plays when he wants to play. Right? Carter Hart made a great save on him in the Philly game. He was in it in the Philly game. He looked fantastic, but last night he looked disinterested, like he didn't even want to be there, didn't even want to play, or he was too busy thinking about what they were going to do for dinner after the game.
Oh, man, yeah, it's just like, with Goldobin, it's just like, he's such a, it's like, as you point out, he is a bit of a frustrating player. I'm still a big Goldie fan. It's just
don't get me wrong, I'm a fan. I just want to see the effort shift after shift after shift instead of, 1 or 2 shifts here or there from the guy.
Like if you bring up like that first game in Colorado, like he was getting in on the forecheck.
He was great that game. He was great in spurts in the Philly game, and then I haven't seen him in the Washington or Chicago game yet.
I'll give you that. Like I didn't see much of the Washington game, or I missed the first half, and then I saw the second half. So I thought he was all right in that game, and then the Chicago game I only saw the second half of the third period in overtime, so I can't really comment on that game. Though I did see that he had less than 10 minutes of ice time that game. So, but yeah, that's a frustrating thing with Goldobin. So it's just like I think the Canucks will have to end up making a decision, if not at the trade deadline in the off season, what exactly they're going to do with him. Because if they can't get him motivated to play just about every night and play hard, then you're gonna have to make a decision if you're gonna move on him and then bring in somebody else. But yeah, I think that would be somebody. It's like if you bring up like a guy like Zach McEwen, another guy that's a big power forward sort of guy that could potentially put up some numbers offensively. That's a guy, that I wouldn't mind seeing going alongside like Pedersen or somebody like that, or Horvat, just giving them a chance. But yeah, and then, I'll bring this up because we haven't gotten into the goaltending situation yet with the Thatcher Demko injury and then the emergency call-up of Michael DiPietro. Which
we don't have anybody else under contract right now, so.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that the Canucks haven't been able to find another goalie to sign or in a trade. But then again, teams know the Canucks are in a position of weakness and they could be asking for a bit more than the Canucks are willing to be giving up.
DiPietro is not a bad backup goalie at this point.
Well, and I think we were talking before, I wouldn't mind seeing him get in the game because like the Canucks just played 4 games in 6 nights with Markstrom playing all 4 games. So then they're back at home for 2 games, and then they go out on the California road trip where they play 3 games in 4 nights. You start off in Anaheim, and then the next night in LA. Would you be tempted to play DiPietro in one of those 2 games? Especially Anaheim was just a train wreck Right now. They have two
It's not exactly a high-scoring team either.
Yeah. It's just the Ducks have 2 wins in their last 20 games, and then they just keep getting pumped wherever they play of
Well,
late. Man, I really feel.
John Gibson keeps thinking it's the All-Star game.
Oh man, I really feel sorry for him. I think he actually got hurt last night on the second goal. I think his defenseman ran over him, and then he didn't even play the third period. So if Gibson's out, the things will really start to go downhill. Or well, I don't even think it can get much worse in Anaheim. But yeah, it would be.
And LA's about to pass them in the standings.
I know, yeah. Well, and Chicago's won 6 straight now, and then St. Louis is in a playoff spot. Like all these teams that we're sort of counting out, sort of slowly but surely.
Yeah, the West, basically from 7th to last, is only like a 4 or 5 point spread right now. It's going to be a crazy stretch down to the playoffs here, and it's going to be interesting to see what some of the teams do. I know we're on the Canucks episode today, but I mean, some of these teams are going to have to decide whether they're buyers or sellers, and to me, I think the Canucks are still going to have to be a seller. I don't think they're ready to be a buyer. They can still free up some cap space for some potential UFAs or maybe a crazy RFA signing this summer. But they also have to start, looking at paying Besser. They're going to have to, they're only a few years away from having to pay Patterson or Quinn Hughes if Quinn Hughes comes up and starts playing a handful of games this year. But I think they're in great shape as far as the cap goes. I think they can add some couple pieces this summer or even through trade here at the deadline. I'll be curious to see what they do.
Yeah, because my big guy that I'm keen in on, if he does make it to free agency, would be Mark Stone. That would be the guy I'd be going all in on, especially to get a guy to play with Horvat. He's a great two-way player. Really high offensive ability, one of the underrated superstars in the NHL. Just the way that he's able to play, and he's only I think only 26 years old. Yeah. So he'd fit in with this core really nicely. One can wish, but
my wish list is Erik Karlsson, but again.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't have any complaints there either. If you can get Quinn Hughes and then bring in Erik Karlsson, then you're looking.
RFA, I wouldn't mind seeing an offer sheet to Mikko Rantanen or Braden Point.
Oh yeah, well, especially Braden Point would be really interesting just to see with Tampa Bay and their limited cap space this off season. If they could get in real big trouble if they can't get rid of that Ryan Callahan contract this off season, because the way Point's been playing, he's going to get maybe around that 9 million mark, sort of the way that he's been playing. But yeah, I think a quick transition here into the prospects, just to give a little bit of an update. Tyler Madden, a heck of a weekend, scored an overtime winner to get Northeastern into the bean pot. I believe scoring and having another nice celebration. The guys he had the canoe celebration, and this one was sort of like a sliding on his back snow angel sort of thing. But yeah, he's up to 9 goals, 22 points in 23 games. If we do,
he's only 156 pounds, I might add, right now.
Oh, man,
his dad might need to help him out and bulk up a little bit there.
Oh,
but yeah, one hell of a player, that's for sure.
But yeah, I think talk about out of all the biggest surprises out of all the Canuck prospects, I think Madden's been the biggest eye opener this year. And then if you go to Quinn Hughes, he's up to 4 goals, 25 points in 23 games. And Jet Wu
is definitely a surprise this year.
Yeah, 10 goals, 47 points in 45 games with Moose Jaw this year. So those are the big guys making noise right now for the Canuck prospects. But yeah, I think that's just about it.
All right. Well, remember to like and comment and share on our Facebook page. If you want just the episodes that we film, subscribe to us on YouTube. Make sure you tell your family and friends and the people that you know about us that are big hockey fans. The more we interact with you, the more we absolutely love this show. So let us know in the comments below what you think about the Vancouver Canucks or your favorite hockey team, because we know lots of you are weird and like other NHL hockey teams. So anyways, have a great weekend. We're going to be back next week, Monday, to do our weekly Around the NHL update. And lots of games this weekend. Enjoy. Whether you're playing or watching, enjoy all the hockey that goes on in Canada and other parts of the world each and every weekend. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week.